Hello.
Welcome, everybody. Gonna wait another minute here till the official starting time for introductions and to get the show going, but I did want to quickly welcome everybody for tuning in.
Welcome, welcome. Thanks for having lunch with us.
There we go.
You want to hide everybody? We don't want to see them?
Well, I don't know if they want to see themselves.
They can't see themselves.
Oh, really? Okay. Do you see the video panel? This like video in the top on the corner? No.
No video camera.
Yeah, it's programmed to do that.
Yeah, I thought that makes sense.
Very, very smart. The Zoom people are very smart.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty. I'm pretty pro Zoom. I mean it's obviously we've all had quite a bit of it, but it's also nice to be able to get together, like in the middle of the day, for example, where doing that in person would be a big challenge. So.
Oh yeah.
All right. Okay, well, let's see here. We're waiting for one of our folks to log in here. All right. Well, I think we're good here. So welcome everybody. I'm Tom Boss at the Marin County Bicycle Coalition, and we're really excited to have our partners here from the New Wheel, Brett and Karen. They've been longtime supporters of MCBC and just biking in general around the Bay Area. They're very involved in supporting better bicycle infrastructure, helping us get the Richmond Bridge open for transportation, and building out our North-South Greenway, which goes right by their business near the Larkspur Ferry. And the New Wheel is focused primarily on electric bikes and has been since the start. So they're really very knowledgeable on the topic, and we're super excited to have them here today to present a workshop on e-bikes. And with that, Brett and Karen, take it away.
Thank you, Tom.
That's Brett.
Well, we can do our introductions here.
Okay. Do we do that?
I have it.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Look at that.
Oh, there we are.
This is us. My name is Brett Thurbert. I am one of the owners of the New Wheel. I started the New Wheel in 2010 out of our apartment in Oakland, and thought electric bikes were amazing. And so went and tried a few and thought, this could do really well in my hometown of San Francisco. And so started doing test rides at people's homes around San Francisco, and everything has grown from there. So that's my story.
And my name's Karen, and I'm Brett's co-owner of the New Wheel. And you know, I just want to say a little bit of housekeeping. It's really fun to see you guys. So when you're not having a bite of lunch, you know, it's like really thrilling to see your audience. It's like my favorite part of this whole thing. So we have your little video up over here on the right side of the screen. And we also have the meeting chat open. And this presentation is intended to be really interactive. And what we'll do is keep a little eyeball on the meeting chat. And so if you have any questions to interject, feel free to do so. We'll just say, hey, that's coming up later it's coming up later in the show. And otherwise, we like to be pulled into new directions and really answer the burning questions that you guys have on your minds.
We will also have at the end, I have, a section there we can answer.
Yeah, we
can stay as long as you need us.
Question time at the end too, but I don't know. I like to be dynamic. Our job, our passion, our mission as an organization is to inspire and support people to ride electric bikes. And so in the stores, what we do is a lot of support and a lot of inspiration. And today we're just 100% inspiration, I guess. And so that's what I've got. Let's launch into it.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, I did that. My name's Karin. I co-own the New Wheel with Brett. And we have a daughter together. We also live together and stuff like that. Ride e-bikes all day, every day. And I think that's
Karin grew up in Marin.
Oh, I grew up in West Marin. Sorry. Thank you, Brett. I grew up in Marshall, small town in West Marin. We live in Sausalito now, in a house that my family purchased in the 40s. And so we're like Marin through and through. E-bikes have completely changed my relationship with Marin because when you grow up in Marshall, well, cars are like the center of your universe. And now I can bicycle to West Marin, and we do that on holidays, and just you can do it like in 4 hours. You can get to Point Reyes. So I'm really excited to be talking to you guys specifically because I feel like I have a lot of experience with living in Marin. So
okay, let's see next. Oops. So we have just a bit more about us. So we started in 2010, or I started in 2010, and then Karin joined a year later when we opened our San Francisco store in 2011. And then our Marin store we opened in 2016. And then just last year, we opened a store in Oakland. And so we have the 3 retail locations, and we also have a service center in San Francisco, which is where we do like the warehouse and big service, complicated e-bike service and building bikes and things like this. And like Karin said earlier, sort of our focus is, number one, quality product. Secondly, like comprehensive e-bike services from the test ride to the service side of things. And then at the end of the day, it's all about long-term customer success, because our mission is to help inspire people and support people to ride. And if you're not successful, don't put many miles on the bike. So that is a huge goal of ours. So on this, I guess to start, we want to just kind of give a little overview of e-bikes and like the basics. And, there's a lot to get into if you're into that, and we're happy to answer any questions, but we'll keep it really basic to start. So, fundamentally an e-bike is what makes it really cool is bicycles are one of the most efficient forms of transportation that exist.
Arguably the most.
Yeah. A bicycle, in terms of energy used to power you down the road, it's very minimal because it's efficient, but it's also a lot lighter weight than you are as a rider. And then when you add a small electric engine, it changes the game because it makes everything flat. And you're in control. So if you want to flatten out your terrain, you can. If you want to work harder, you can. But fundamentally, like electric bikes of all means of transportation, it is the most efficient in the use of power, but also it's very joyful. Surprisingly, e-bikes have been around for a long time. The first e-bike, one of the first e-bikes was patented in 1893, actually. Batteries have been around for quite some time. And once you had a battery and you had motors, you could make an electric bicycle. And it was one of the first applications of batteries. Bicycles also have been around for a long time, and not a whole lot has changed. The first generation e-bike used a throttle, and they still do today. There's many e-bikes with throttles, and we'll get into like the different classes of electric bikes, but a throttle, basically we consider sort of first generation electric bike where it's, you know, it has two wheels, it's like a bicycle, may or may not have pedals, and has a push button that will just let the bike go without any pedaling necessarily. So it's a little bit, it works, it, you know, it powers you down the road, but sometimes it can leave something to be desired because, you know, it's a little bit, you know, you have a little bit of a confusion about, you know, should I be pedaling, should I be throttling on a long ride? If you're just twisting a throttle, it's a little tiresome, and it doesn't have the sort of magical feel necessarily because it doesn't sort of combine with your pedaling. And so,
well, it's worth noting too that the like the historical trajectory was that the electric powered bicycle became a scooter. And then bicycles became bicycles. And now we have a new generation, a renewed generation of electric bicycles that are actually bicycles, and use electric power to make it more fun and more applicable to more conditions, use cases. And that's what these generations, the next generations, really are.
So the second generation, around in the early 90s, Yamaha invented pretty much the first electric bicycle in Japan. And it used what's called a cadence sensor and nickel metal hydride batteries. So they're heavier batteries, and it used a cadence sensor, which basically knew whether you were pedaling. And so it has magnets. You can see on this picture here, there's like the sensor, this black sensor around the crank arm that your pedal is spinning around. And it has a sensor that picks up whether you're pedaling, and then it will give you power based on whether you're pedaling. So it doesn't know how hard you're pedaling, and it doesn't know, it knows that you're pedaling, and then it gives you power based on that. And what that allowed for is a much more bicycle-like feel. You know, you start pedaling, you shift gears, and the bike just gives you assist based on that. And so even now, there's a lot of bikes that use, usually on the lower priced level of electric bicycles, they'll use usually either a throttle and a cadence sensor or just a cadence sensor. And it works. The issue with a cadence sensor is it's a little bit more herky-jerky. So if you've tried an e-bike before that is like doesn't feel particularly smooth, it's probably has a cadence sensor. And so you'll hear it, they'll talk about it in terms of pedal assist, and it is pedal assist, but it's not going to feel, it's going to maybe leave a little bit to be desired in terms of like the ride feel. And as a cycling experience, it's a little bit, maybe, leave something to be desired. And that brings us to the third generation, which was actually invented pretty quickly after, like some early Yamaha bikes used torque sensors as well. And what a torque sensor is it doesn't just know whether you're pedaling, it knows how hard you're pedaling. And it does that with what's called a strain gauge. And it can tell that you're putting more or less pressure on the pedals, and then it gives you power in proportion to that. It also, a good torque sense pedal assist bike will also know whether you're pedaling too. So it has a cadence sensor, and it also has a speed sensor. So it knows how fast the bike's going. And it'll use all of those sensors to give you a really natural ride feel. And that's the goal at the end of the day, is it should feel like the best bicycle you've ever ridden, but you have superpowers. So that's the goal that everyone's trying to attain. It takes a lot of work and a lot of technology to make it happen, but over the years, it's gotten better and better and better. And so, and motor technology has gotten better and better and better. So the motors are more powerful, they're smaller, they're lighter weight. The the sensors and the processors are getting more and more sophisticated. So that's kind of underappreciated, but like that's one of the biggest drivers of performance, is just like the computer chips that are on these motors now. And probably the least important overall in terms of like the rapidity of change is the batteries. So batteries have gotten a whole lot better. So since the early days in the early 90s, there was super heavy batteries. And now we have lithium ion batteries since around 2000. The first electric bike with lithium ion batteries was invented, but they haven't advanced quite as much as like the motor and sensor and processor technology has, although they're getting a lot better. And the good news is, currently you have bikes that are, you can go 100 miles on a charge, 60 miles on a charge easily with lots of assist, climb any mountain, and it works. And it's extremely compelling. So if you haven't tried an electric bike, we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's kind of mind-bogglingly, like even when I started in 2010, it was mind-boggling how good electric bikes were then. Now they're even better.
So I think it's useful to kind of understand how this, like the landscape, especially the policy landscape, policy and cultural landscape that this technology exists in. So Brett mentioned a lot of this technology, especially in the early 90s, came out of Japan. And it traveled over to Germany in the early 90s, where bicycling has been a big thing for a long time. And so in that landscape, e-bikes have become a really big deal. So in Holland last year, 30% of bicycles sold were electric. People are riding their bikes more. They're riding them to older age. There is more cycling infrastructure, like bicycle superhighways that are made for long distance, quick commuting between towns, this sort of thing. Now, it's not here, but what it does is it provides this really great blueprint for what we can work towards and what we are working towards in this country. So as an example, in California, there was legislation called AB 1096, which was essentially established electric bicycles as bicycles in 3 different classes. And it's based on German legislation and EU legislation. So this is the tie-in to kind of what is already happening in Europe. And so I'm going to get into the classes in just a second. I'll get into those details, but the exciting trajectory of all of this is that we have proof of concept already, that Europe has shown that even with worse weather, one can dramatically change a transportation landscape from like the 1970s to now, from being very auto dependent to being very bicycle centered. And so there is tons to do. There is legislation in the works on how people get to buy electric bikes, how how financing works, how governments provide incentives for purchasing something like an e-bike versus an electric car. Of course, better infrastructure and more regulation around the product, around its quality. Lots of stuff in the news right now around e-bike batteries, which we'll touch on more later, because I'm sure there's excitement and interest in that. But it's a very, very exciting topic and just incredibly optimistic. And there's a lot of work to do. So that's where working with MCBC, working with the state government, and ideally someday federal too. One of the things that makes e-bikes especially has helped e-bikes spread is actually tax policy in Europe. And hopefully one day tax policy will support people to actually choose to bicycle in America. That would be awesome. Do you have anything to add?
No, there's a lot of momentum right now. I think in the Bay Area, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission has started doing some incentives. Some of the the community choice aggregator, like power companies, are basically are building incentives for purchasing electric bikes. So the momentum is really, really good.
So there are 3 classes of electric bikes. Class 1 is pedal assist only with no throttle and a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour. And this class is just acts on the road just like a regular bicycle. You can use regular bike infrastructure, anybody can ride them, etc. Class 2 is also 20-mile max speed, but can have a throttle. So these are the bikes that you might see people riding without pedaling. And there are different rules. Local municipalities can have rules on how each one of these different classes is regulated in their community. Class 3 is pedal assist only with no throttle and a maximum assisted speed of 28 miles an hour. And at the New Wheel, we specialize in class 1 and 3 for lots of different reasons. Basically, they're the most efficient and most magical. And also historically the best, because there is no class 2 in Europe. And a lot of the innovation happens in and for the European market.
So there's a lot of different electric bikes out there. So we're just, and we can take a bunch of, all your questions on the different types and why and what they all mean. In our, as a basis, we carry a lot of different styles with different motor systems, but sort of the basis for a quality e-bike today is a mid-drive motor system, especially in the Bay Area, where mid-drive works really well for all terrain types and all hills. Like it can climb anything, even the steepest grades. Paired with a large and safe battery. And by large, with a mid-drive system, you don't need as large of a battery as you do with a hub motor system, because mid-drives use less power and they're more efficient. But with a mid-drive, around a 400 watt-hour battery or more is sufficient for anywhere from 30 to 50 miles to a charge. And then, important to us, and I think for most customers, is a good warranty, because that's the manufacturer standing behind the product and standing behind the retailer to ensure that things can get fixed, and that they aren't just selling something that will, that fundamentally isn't all that sustainable if it's destined for the landfill because it breaks and there's no one there to support it. So a supported warranty, when we say that, it's like, it does matter who the manufacturer is, because not all manufacturers are created equal in terms of their ability or willingness to support a warranty. E-bike safety is another topic, and it's becoming more and more of a topic, because especially in places where e-bikes have really taken off, namely in New York City, electric bikes are very popular, not just for individuals, but also for deliveries, food deliveries. Unfortunately, the economics of the food delivery business is that a lot of the people are buying whatever e-bikes they can at cheap a price as possible. And that comes with the risk of very kind of unsafe batteries or not tested batteries a lot of them coming from China. And what's happened in New York is there's been a lot of battery fires because of this. And so New York is now working on regulating independently, because the CPSC has not stepped in yet. And although the CPSC just recently has sent out letters to us and all the other e-bike manufacturers saying that you need to make sure that your products are UL tested. And UL is a standard for electronics, and they have different testing standards. All of our batteries and chargers are UL tested. And then there's only one system on the market currently that is kind of the gold standard on testing, which is UL 2849. And in New York City, they're going to be requiring that all e-bikes sold are UL 2849 tested. And what UL 2849 is, and if you look at the bottom of a charger or a battery, you'll see it says UL tested. And what UL 2849 is that they test the whole system. So it's not just the battery, not just the charger, but all the wiring, everything that's electronic, the motor is tested with the standard. So it is the gold standard. At the moment, Bosch is the only system that is fully UL tested.
That is UL 2849.
Sorry, UL 2849 tested. But in our conversations with all of our suppliers, like that's where everything's going in the industry. And it's just taken kind of some of this recent hyper development of e-bikes, and especially since the pandemic, to really light a fire. I mean, unfortunately, that's a bad analogy, but yes, that is the analogy. Yeah, the good news is, we've sold thousands of electric bikes in the Bay Area over the last 10 years, like, thousands and thousands, and we don't have no problems with any of this stuff. But unfortunately, there's a whole range of quality issues with batteries, and batteries are, they're tricky. To do it right and to do it safe is not easy. Even if you have a UL tested battery, you still need to treat your battery and charging with care. So, charge it when you're with your battery. You don't just leave it plugged in all the time and then go for vacation for a month. Like that's not best practice. Even if with the safest, best tested system, you always want to be, a little careful. It's just like, when you're filling up gas, you don't talk on the phone at the same time, that sort of thing. We want to look at some bikes with you, because I think that is always, can be interesting and also much more informative to talk about specifics. So we're just going to go over like a few of the different styles of bikes, and we can answer any questions you might have. These are our classifications. We find them useful, but they may not match exactly with your style of riding. But the first class is what we call cruising and comfort, and what that is more of a leisurely style bike. So it's a bike that you are, you don't have to necessarily get anywhere like particularly fast. You're not like commuting every day a certain distance and have to get there on time. You're sort of enjoying the ride. You're going to tend to be a little bit more upright ride position. It's going to have some comfort features, maybe not quite looking for as much speed as comfort. And a bike like this is a bike from Gazelle called the Ultimate T10. This is kind of a classic cruising and comfort bike. So it's a really low step frame, has front suspension built in. Some have even more suspension. There's optional seat post suspension. And it's fully equipped. So it's got lights, fenders, a rear rack that you can put groceries on, a cafe lock, which is, I don't know if you can see my cursor, probably not, but that's the, I don't know how to describe that. It's on the rear wheel. It locks the wheel so someone can't ride away with the bike. Hydraulic disc brake. Oh, you do? Okay, good. Okay, good. So you can see this. This is a cafe lock. So it basically locks the rear wheel and stops someone from riding away with the bike. But you can also plug another chain lock into this that then locks it to something. So you've got double security. This bike has a motor in the middle. This is a mid-drive system. And what's nice about a mid-drive and top of the efficiency is like the rear wheel is just like a normal bicycle. So you can take the wheel off really easily if you need to, or any bike shop can take the wheel off. So if you're traveling and, on a vacation and you get a flat tire, you can go to any bike shop and they can help you. There's nothing electronic anywhere other than right here. And it's not something that you have to access. And then brakes, it has hydraulic brakes. So all of the bikes that we sell have hydraulic disc brakes from quality manufacturers. And that's really important because braking is important. Stopping is important.
So this is the commute from Marin to San Francisco bike. This is a bike that it's called the Stromer ST3. Urban and commuting is really about covering distance. It's often these bikes are built for speed. This bike, if you'll notice, the motor is in the rear wheel. And what that means is that it is very quiet, and it is also very, it picks up speed quickly. So the motor and the wheel being kind of in the same unit means that your impact on
Acceleration.
basically acceleration is very quick. Hill climbing, not as much. So you'll notice a lot of high quality electric bikes are mid-drive, and that's because a lot of people have them for their hill climbing capacity. A rear hub drive motor will climb a good hill, but not as well as a mid-drive. This bike has things like ABS braking. So if you notice, this is something that you'll start to see more and more on high quality bikes. You've got the outer part of the disc brake right here, which is where the caliper is attached. And then there's actually an inner disc. And that inner disc is ABS braking, just like you would have on your car, maintains especially effective braking in wet or moist conditions, and make sure that you will be in control of your bike in key moments. Do you have?
Yeah, I mean, this is the only bike that we carry that is a hub drive, and it's a different type of, there's different types of hub drives too. This is what's called a direct drive hub motor. So there's no gears inside this motor, and it gives very smooth acceleration, and it's completely silent. It, like Karin said, it's really good for quick acceleration and speed. And so for like, this bike is one of the fastest bike that we carry, but if it's not the bike for like if you want to put a child on the back of this. And generally with urban and commuting bikes, it's all about also, besides the speed, it's also about like low maintenance and cleanliness, because you want to be able to, like, you know, dress up and not get messed up. And so this bike has a belt drive, you'll notice. So there's no lubrication or chain lube required, and it's not going to get on your slacks. Kids and cargo. This is a huge, very, very big category for us. It's become probably the #1 category for us as a shop in all of our locations. And what this is just in the name. It's bikes that are utility bikes that have extra capacity for either carrying passengers or for carrying more stuff. And typically it's the passenger side of things and the stuff that come with the passengers that is important. And specifically, it's like this bike. This is the Turn GSD. This is the #1 selling family bike and cargo bike. So you can fit 2 children on the back rack here in Yep seats, or just sitting on the rack. There's lots of accessories that make it do all sorts of different things. You can put a front rack. You can put wraparound bars, you can put bags, all sorts of things. This uses the most performance-oriented Bosch engine because you're taking a lot of weight up really steep hills. So this is a Bosch Gen 4 motor. And it's dual battery ready, so you can fit 2 batteries. So you can go either carry a lot of stuff and go really far, or just not have to charge very often. This bike also is being used, like in New York right now. A lot of the courier companies are using this bike to do deliveries, to like big package deliveries, like literally replacing box trucks with one of these with a cargo trailer behind it. So if you go to New York now, you're going to start seeing a lot of that happening. I
also wanted to mention on the cargo side, lots of customers use this bike for, we've got handymen who use it. People who have a pet, like a small dog, will use this. There are specific setups to be able to accommodate other types of cargo other than just
kids.
Small people.
Yeah. And there are bikes also, single versions of this where you can have just a passenger sit on the back. So this is the heavy duty version, but then there's lighter duty versions.
Oops, we missed one.
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Road and Adventure. These are maybe more recreational oriented bikes, although that's not to say that you can't do other things on them, but they're like long distance touring or weekend rides. This bike is the Specialized Creo SL. This is like this is just it's a road bike, and a drop bar road bike, and it's very lightweight, and you can do really long rides. Also in this category, we have like more trekking and touring style bikes. So if you wanted to go multiple like weekend rides out to, Point Reyes and stay overnight and, camp and then come back, you can do that on bikes in this category. But they're generally kind of more open road style bikes. And then mountain and trail is trail oriented bikes. We have a lot of bikes that are kind of mixed use, especially what we would sell in Marin. Like you can go to the store and they have like a bike like this from Reese and Muller you can put a fully supported rear rack, so you can have bags on it. But then on the weekends, you can go take it on trails and be really confident on fire roads and trails. There are rules around where you can ride, and you do need a class. Typically, it's a class 1 bike is going to be a mountain or trail bike, and the class 1 is pedal assist up to 20 miles per hour. And that fits the regulations for most for where you would typically ride a trail bike. And trail bikes will have, longer travel front suspension. Usually almost exclusively will be mid-drive because it just works better. You have way more torque at slow speeds, going up steep terrains, and you can keep traction. And then we'll sometimes and very often have rear suspension as well.
In that spirit, this is my bike. I kind of consider it like a Marini bike. It's a little bit of everything. I can ride on fire roads with it. I can ride to the city easily on it. When my daughter was small enough, I could stick her on the back rack. So anyways, I think we're just thought I'd share. That's the one I love.
And this is actually our bike. This is a full suspension front loader cargo bike, usually this with a child seat in the front. Our daughter sits in the front, but we do all sorts of things on this bike, and it's adjustable enough. I think that's an important point. A lot of e-bikes that you'll buy are actually quite adjustable, so that you can fit any rider, so you don't have to buy a bike for each person. They can share. So this bike, seat height obviously is adjustable, but also the handlebars go forward and back and up and down. So the cockpit is actually fully adjustable for someone my height, 6'4", to Karen's height, 4 foot.
5 feet.
5 feet.
5 feet.
An important, the number one question we get is just securing your bike, and it's a good question. So I
Doug, we'll come to your question in, I think, just a minute.
Yeah, if you'll stick with us.
Yeah, just hold tight for just a minute. We're almost done.
So high quality lock, locking can be really simple. So just get a good lock. Keep your locking simple. So, if you ideally you want as few steps as possible. So ideally just lock the frame to something, and you're done. And then it's not as big a deal in Marin, but like in our San Francisco customers, we always tell them you got to lock in your garage too, unfortunately. And then finally, just for like, you should be able to treat your bike just like any other vehicle. You should be able to lock it and feel fine to go and do your thing, go to the movies, go out to dinner. And so it's all about peace of mind. So insurance is a big part of peace of mind. And there's now e-bike insurance that's easy to sign up. We have a sign up on our website for e-bike insurance and through Oyster, but you can also you can put it under your personal insurance, your homeowners, renters. You can get a rider, lots of good solutions there. We have a web page here, newwheel.net/security, that makes breaks it down. I would encourage you to check that out. But the main point is securing your e-bike when you're out and about is not hard to do, and you keep it simple and you can feel really secure.
There's a lot of exciting technology coming on this as well. So I think increasingly you're going to see trackability on motors, and really sophisticated ability to keep track of where your bike is when and if you need to.
Yeah. Final points here. I think it's really important to think really big about buying an e-bike and not think like, and I think it's depends on what you're looking to, but we have a lot of people come in who are just like thinking, oh, I just need to go from A to B and that's it.
Or
and
I've always used my bike for X and I want to use it for X.
yeah,
But it's actually X plus N+1.
yeah. There's a lot more. You got to
B+1.
There's a like the fact once you add a motor and this with this a really nice ride feel and all this, you're just going to want to get out there more often, and you'll think of excuses and ways and places to go. And so if you don't think big about where you might want to go. Like it's kind of like the world's your oyster. With an e-bike, you can go way further than you would on a normal bike. You can go up steeper hills. You can go down steeper hills, with good brakes and all of that. So don't limit yourself mentally about what you can and can't do, because it's the whole point of e-bikes is they actually like make you superhuman and you can do way more than you expected.
I think in Marin, like the key mind opener that I think is worth like really pinpointing is that one of the things that we love about our county is like the small streets and the quaint scale of everything, but we also often build our schedules and our lives around things like, oh, don't go to Good Earth during rush hour, or, that's when school lets out or whatever, because traffic and congestion is a really serious local problem. And if you buy an electric bike, you're completely freed from that, because suddenly maybe even like a 6 or 7 mile ride to go to the grocery store is a non-issue. And that's really, really liberating.
You can kind of feel sometimes, I feel like we've like hacked crack the code, we're the when you're watching the traffic on the 101 and you're cruising by, you're like, whoa, this is we figured something out here. So the number one, Doug, you asked a question about a second e-bike for trails and things like this, and the number one thing that, like, we can talk specifics, but the other thing that I do know is test riding is really important, and trying bikes, and you can know yourself, of course, your budget. So that's the one thing. But if you try bikes, you will know the difference between, a 2000, a rad bike and a bike offered at your local, bike shop. And it may not matter to you, but it might. And in our experience, like, it's the difference in price is not all that much different. It might look like it at first, but the quality difference is quite something. And the other side of that is, like, for a shop to support, the reason why the shops don't typically have bikes at a certain price level is like they would have a hard time supporting those bikes because of the quality compromises that are made. And so a lot of the times, what we've seen on, like, especially on the online, because there's this the new world of, like, a lot of online bikes, and they look really good online. And then when they arrive at the doorstep, and you're putting them together yourself, they're not what they seem. And then when you spend 6 months on them, they're really, really not what they seem. And then when you bring them into a shop, a mechanic's like, it's hard to make them, brakes line up, shifting work properly, because it's just not at a certain level.
I think that the like, what I have long said is, like, there is no magic in the quality of electric bikes. You do get more quality for more money, and the question is just, like, where that makes sense for your economic situation and for what you're looking to do, and what it replaces, what it opens up. So for a lot of people, when buying an electric bike literally means that you can sell a second car, suddenly $4,000 for that bike really is not very much. So it's context, and context is super, super important. There's another question that came in.
I would also say that, you have to consider your use as well. And there are, if like for mountain biking, for instance, you will probably find that, the safety and stability on like a full suspension mountain bike on a trail is going to be, it's just going to be a lot safer. And I think I've seen, there's starting to be bikes at a lower price point with hydraulic brakes, but the quality of those hydraulic brakes aren't so good. And the thing that's a little bit sketchy on e-bikes is like you can go really fast, you can go up really steep hills, and if the brakes don't match the performance and like sort of the overall build doesn't match like what the bike can do and where that can take you, you can get into some tricky situations. And so again, I think you can know this for yourself just by test riding, and you will, and then you just decide whether it's like it makes enough sense for you. Our stores are all about trying the bikes. Like that's where we are successful, is like people can tell the difference. And then and it's and then when you can tell the difference, you can also like, you do invest in a nicer quality bike. And then when you come back for service, like we can keep it at a nicer, at a higher quality level. So our San Francisco, all of our stores have just mostly their demo centers, their experience centers. They're not just like we have new bikes in the stores, but a lot of our back storage is in our warehouse and storage service center. And so the stores themselves are all about demo bikes. So we've got 30 demo bikes in San Francisco, we've got 40 in Marin and 30 plus in Oakland. It changes from time to time. And you can book an appointment on our website. And you can come and test ride.
Or you can just walk in.
You can walk in
if you're
too.
feeling inspired.
Yeah.
I want to chime in here for a second. My experience is you buy a bike, an e-bike from a known brand, a bike brand, you're gonna have a much more reliable bike and experience. Everybody I know who's bought an e-bike from a Specialized or a Trek or a Stromer, they generally have very few problems with them. And if they do have a problem, they can generally take it to any bike shop because the systems are pretty well known, versus some of the online brands where, every 6 months there might be a different system, and your local bike shop might say, sorry, I can't help you with that. So I think those alone are worth the extra expense.
Yeah, there are problems that you may not even foresee. For example, some of these bikes that are not designed to be sold in a experiential context literally can't be put up into a regular bike stand. So you'll walk in with your bike that you love, but it has a flat, and the mechanic literally can't help you because they can't use their tools. So there are all sorts of it's a complicated thing. As many of you will know, because you're associated with a bike coalition already and probably have your own bike. A bike is a machine of many parts, and part of those parts is actually the human infrastructure that you get with it, and the relationship you have with your bike shop or with your mechanic, and so it all comes together to make success, because things can happen to any bike. And there's lots of things can happen. You can get a flat, you can whatever. And so what we see is that to be successful, you have to plan that something will happen. And the question is, how do you fix it?
I think final thing I'll say is like the cheaper bikes, like no one's come up with any new physics on any of this or any new like science. Like the cheaper bikes are cheaper for two reasons. One, they're using cheaper parts. And the second reason is that it's do it yourself, right? So they are putting they don't have a shop presence. So they're not paying us to sell the bike and to service the bike. They're just going direct to you. So it's important to be clear-eyed about that and know what that is. And that means some specific things. And I think the cheaper parts side kind of goes with the shop, because, once you start adding price, like the newest Rad Power bike is a $2,500 bike That doesn't include a build, which is like a $300 extra charge. So now you're getting it up to $2,800, and we have bikes starting at $2,700, you know, with a Bosch motor system and it comes built and a 2-year warranty. So it all is, they have to make money too. And I think eventually we're going to start to see like everything's going to be around the same price because they're going to have to provide a service. You know, they're going to have to provide, and when they do, they're going to have a certain quality level of component, because you can't service things at a certain quality level long term.
We spent a lot of time on the subject.
Yeah,
Does anybody have any other questions? Somebody loves their turn back Donald, and smiles all the time, which is a major downside. Oh, I know, it's horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Yeah, any questions?
I wanted to give, I don't know that now's the time, but I did want to give Zoe a few minutes to talk about the eBike Smart program.
Yeah.
Is now a good time? Are you on,
yeah.
Zoe?
Oh.
Hi, thanks, Mom. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Hi, thanks. So yeah, I am Zoe, advocacy assistant with the Marin County Bike Coalition, and we're launching one of our newest programs later this month, Teens eBike Smart. So it's a class that's specifically designed for teens who are in grades 6 through 8. And it's a 2-hour class where they can learn more about rules of the road, practice some bike handling skills, emergency maneuvers, and get a little practice actually riding on the road. And of course, the outcome we're hoping is that they're just safer and more confident riders on their e-bikes as they're commuting to school, soccer practice, and all that good stuff. So if you guys have a teen who maybe is interested in that, or you know people who might be, stay tuned for more info on that coming out, or you can get in touch with me directly. I'm happy to drop my email in the chat.
Awesome.
So exciting, Zoe. This is like really the I think key cultural work that we are all doing together, right? And helping to navigate these, many of us have been on the road or on bike lanes where we've seen these youngsters riding bikes. Some of them don't have great skills and awareness around how to do it with other people, and really leaning in and just saying, okay, let's just have these conversations and teach people is just very, very cool. And I totally applaud MCBC for taking this on like this. It's great. Because fundamentally, it's worth remembering, every 16-year-old you see on an electric bike is a 16-year-old that probably has not had a car purchased for them. And that's great, right? That's the future that we're working towards and working for. And so figuring out how to support these people really well is important. And even when we're out on the bike infrastructure and talking to these kids and coming up alongside them and encouraging them in the right direction, it's all part of the same work. So thank you, Zoe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you guys mentioned earlier, you described e-bikes as being liberating. I just love that so much. And I think that needs to be extended to the kids in our community as well. Bikes are, kids' first real method of independent transportation. And we just want to make sure that they're being safe and everyone around them is also safe. So we're really excited to be launching this class soon.
Yeah.
Awesome. Marcy and Steve, if it's all right, we'll move back to the questions we got. Yeah. Marcy had a question for the kids in cargo. Do you sell all the extras? And Marcy, the answer is yes. We sell many, many extras. Some of them are brand specific. And for example, I do a kids in cargo class as well. I'm teaching one this weekend at Natural Resources, if anybody's curious. But there's literally kickstands are a key reason you'd want to purchase a specific electric cargo bike, because starting and stopping is probably the most challenging thing to do with a child. And so a kickstand is very brand specific. You kind of would buy a bike for a good kickstand almost. So there is some limitation around what kind of bike you already have, Marcy, but we're really happy to help and see what we can do for you. And in terms of the cost of maintenance, Steve, you know, it really depends on how many miles you put on your bike. A lot of people put a lot more miles on their e-bikes than they ever thought they would. And that to us is really good news. And so we work to support our customers to do regular maintenance so that instead of like totally grinding everything down on your bike, whenever it happens to happen, you're coming in once a year and getting a tune-up and carrying on. So I think it's realistic to budget, depending on how much you ride, somewhere between $250 to $400 per year, would you say? Or $450?
Yeah.
Like for a really heavy commuter. Like I ride from Sausalito to the south part of San Francisco every day. So it's a good commute. And I probably spend about $450 per year on tune-ups, tires, new chains, brake pads, that sort of thing.
We sell service plans with the bikes that we carry. So we include 6 months of service. Then we have service plans, and our basic service plan is $200 a year, and that covers all basic service like tune-in adjustments, like all the adjustments and things like this, and also it comes with roadside pickup service, and also includes brake pad replacement, not the parts. So and we recommend that for people who are a little bit more occasional riders, so less than less than like 1,000 miles or 800 miles a year. And then you get also a discount on a comprehensive service, which is like a full cleaning, all parts installed, included. And then we have a $300 service plan that includes that comprehensive service and discounts on parts and accessories. And that's for the people who are doing more than 800 miles a year. So if you're like daily riding and you're putting a good amount of miles. So if you say $300 plus, maybe $100 a year, you might not spend that in the first year of ownership or the first 2 years, but then by the third year you bank it and you will spend it because you need to replace tires, you need to replace this. There are wearables. There's a question from Sushil about the Gazelle. I think internally geared hub is what you're referencing. Internally geared hubs are awesome. They will have a little lower torque for really steep hills, but it does depend on the bike and the gearing and the way it's set up. There's a lot of variabilities. Like it's hard to say like, this bike is it's hard to like piece it all out because the way the bike is designed, there's a lot of subtleties, different gearing on different bikes. So like the same hub on a different model from a different brand will perform a little differently. So I would say, to answer your question, should definitely test ride like the Gazelle T10 versus the Gazelle C380, for instance, and just see what you think and see how it performs on hills for you. The T10 will perform up really steep hills a little bit better because of the gearing on it. But the internally geared hub is super low maintenance, really simple operation. And
can I put in a pitch for another bike?
Yeah.
If they do come in and try
the Turn NBD.
Yeah, you should also try the Turn NBD i5. Which is a new bike and so increasingly parts are being manufactured by manufacturers specifically for electric bikes. And the internal 5-speed hub from Shimano is one of those, and it has really, really good performance. It's like my new favorite thing. So if you're curious, if you're internally geared curious, try that bike.
We have on the topic of Specialized versus Gazelle, the Specialized has a bike called the Como, which would be equivalent to a Gazelle Ultimate. There's Gazelle has a few different models. They have the Gazelle Ultimate, the Arroyo. There's a new version of the Arroyo coming out, which is very exciting, with the same hub that's on the NBD. And I would say I mean, my personal preference would be Gazelle, just because I mean they're made in the Netherlands, like, and the Specialized bikes are made not by special. I mean, they're made by a third party, especially and in Asia. Gazelle is a pretty hard to beat in terms of like both price and quality. All things told, in my personal opinion, even though we do carry both. But yeah, the Como would be the equivalent.
Steve, to your question, for example, a Bosch battery charges about 50% in the first hour. The longest part of the charge cycle is the last 10%, and that takes about an hour by itself. So more sophisticated batteries have more sophisticated battery management systems on them. And for example, if you're, if you're riding a really long ride and you want to stop at a cafe and charge up enough for another 20 miles, a Bosch battery will do that incredibly well. And other than that, I'm not sure. Stromer does have a fast charger, but it's not.
Stromer, yeah. The issue is like, again, like chargers have to be tested to UL standards if they're going to sell them, or if they're a reputable company. And so it costs a lot of money to do that. So they don't just, so like Bosch has even a faster charger in Europe that they don't bring to the US because they don't want to do all the testing to patent for the US market. So they've kept it simple on that regard. That being said, Stromer's charger is really fast, but also Stromer batteries are the biggest. So they still will take a long time to charge. But again, like Karin's saying, the first 90% of the charge actually takes not as much time as the last 10%. But most of our customers, like the range is so good that you'll charge it up overnight. And you can, and you can go on a really long ride on one charge. So like on our bikes, like a few weeks ago, we went and rode to Inverness. We had 40% charge left at the end of the ride. Or we weren't going super fast. Like we were taking it easy and slow, but
Brett has a really big battery. I have a really little battery. I was out of battery, to be totally honest.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you do. If you're pushing a lot of juice through the battery fast, you're gonna hurt the battery like if you do that all the time. So I've been blown away by just and this is not for all e-bikes. You'll read a lot about people saying, oh, the battery degrades really fast, and it's like, within within a year, I'm already like, I'm not getting as much range as I thought. That is like especially on Bosch, they are really good at their battery management system. So like we have people riding on the same battery 6-7 years on, and only then are they thinking about buying a new battery. And now all the manufacturers are participating in battery recycling programs with Call to Recycle, all the reputable battery manufacturers, I should say. And what that means is like they have a whole life cycle component to recycling the battery after it's done. So when you buy a bike from us, it has the charge has a $15 charge on it, which covers the cost to get that battery back to Call to Recycle, which then takes the lithium and like basically breaks the pack down and recycles everything. And also
just want to be mindful of people's times. It's 1:32. So if anybody feels like they want to leave, that's awesome. We've really enjoyed having you. If you would like to ask more questions,
we're here. Most brands provide a manufacturer brand of the battery.
We know, yes.
Like the cell themselves, the cells, I think. There's
basically looking for what the manufacturers are, like LG. Some of the Chinese brand, they do degrade much quicker, but the LG, Samsung, and I think Panasonic, the ones that are putting on Teslas and Leafs and a lot of these other cars, either Japanese or the Korean brand, I know they've been the top performers versus a Chinese brand, which been tested, been very have degrading performance after the first 6 months. Like you said, cheaper brand bikes you buy, often it is the battery that's going to be the cost effect. So my thing is, what type of batteries are they putting in? Because I'm gonna be very picky about it. I will change out some of the parts on the mechanism, but on the battery, that's gonna be out of my reach and realm here. So that's my
Yeah,
question.
good. Wise.
Thank
So
you.
I mean, there's some really interesting details on this, Steve. There's so Panasonic and Samsung, basically everything we carry has a name brand cell in it. But that's only a portion of the story about the way that a battery performs over time. So a high quality battery pack is essentially takes cells from the same production line and packs them all together. And cheaper, lower expensive
Production run.
Yeah. So they're all like the same exact chemical structure because they're made out of the same batch of batteries. And a lot of these less expensive batteries are actually sort of the B level, like a little bit from production 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that means that the cells are not all acting the same, which can lead to, less reliability and specifically shorter lifespans. So it's not only the cell brand, it's actually the cell, the quality level within the cell brand.
Because the thing that you'll find, we actually, for a minute there, this is getting pretty wonky, but we had someone who was actually taking our batteries when like people gave back their batteries to us, they would take them and they would do tests on all the cells. And you can test you can just open it up and there's, 18650 cells. They're testing each cell and some of the cells were perfectly good. And this is what you'll see on a lot of, like, some cells are 100, really in really good health. And then some cells are not. And then some cells and then the failure wasn't actually a cell maybe, but it was the way the battery was constructed, it was or it was the battery management system had just broken down. So that's I think what Karin's saying is so the first, the common denominator is okay, what's the quality of the cell? Is it coming from Samsung, LG, or Panasonic? And they don't really, just to answer your question really discreetly, Bosch, I suspect Bosch doesn't, I haven't ever seen Bosch say who they're buying it from. They're relying on their brand name for you to say, oh, they're a good one. They aren't getting into the nitty gritty of I think you usually see from the lower quality manufacturers where they lean on oh yeah, we're using Samsung cells because they want to lean on that as their branding because they don't necessarily have their own branding of the battery pack. But Bosch is more about, you're buying a whole Bosch battery pack. And I can tell you, they're definitely the most sophisticated in building battery packs. And they're the only UL certified complete system because they've fully tested all of these things.
And they do everything in-house.
And they do it all in-house. So they're not going through a third party to have the battery pack made, and they're doing it. They have their own production. So yeah, it is an interesting topic, but it is more than just the parts. It's the whole, the sum of the whole. And it's also Bosch does firmware updates from time to time, actually quite often. And that also improves things because they had for, about a year ago, they had a little issue on dual batteries that was causing some issues. And they patched it with a firmware update.
And by issues, you mean they stopped working?
Yeah, we had some failures on Bosch batteries and it had nothing to do with the cells. It just it was software related, and they fixed all of those and they made it all the custom. They took care of
all the customers. Yeah. Well, that was fun.
Yeah. Well,
Any last questions? Okay. We don't need to do it.
I just, you can put your questions in the chat. We'll stick around for another minute if there are any, but I just wanted to thank Brett and Karin for giving us this awesome workshop. I encourage you to go by and see the Larkspur shop. They're right near the Larkspur Ferry on Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. You can ride your bike there through the Cal Park Tunnel or use the new Corte Madera Creek flyover. And if you have any more questions, we'll maybe send an email out so you have our contacts. Happy to answer questions and go take a test drive. You'll be sold and lots of smiles ahead.
Awesome.
So with that, I see, there's a couple. Yeah. I think we're good.
And thank you, Tom and MCBC for everything you do. And we love our new flyover. That is like just the coolest.
Yeah,
Little-
it's pretty
It's
special,
cool.
all those facilities there.
Yeah.
Building
Really,
nice
really
things
great.
for bicyclists.
Super cool. Thank you, everybody.